and it's time for the Tournament of Stitches. Roll the credits.
Hit it, hit it.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Tournament of Stitches with Marley Bird. This is the 4th annual mystery make-along that I have held during the March Madness basketball event. It is a great chance for knitters and crocheters to come together, learn some new stitches and techniques, and have a little fun along the way. I am thrilled to have you here, and if this is your first one, welcome. If this is your 4th one, I'm excited to have you returning as a team member. This is a fun event this year, and it's a little bit different from years past. Let me tell you why. In the previous years, we have made shawls primarily, and in those shawls, we've learned a bunch of different stitches. We've made a basic triangle shawl, an asymmetrical shawl, and then last year we made scarves and cowls, so a lot of neckwear. This year I decided that after the year of 2020 and the craziness that is my life, I needed something a little bit more relaxed, and I assume that a lot of you feel the same way. I don't want to be working on something that feels like it takes a lot of brain power to work through, or even a lot of energy to get through a full list of homework. I want something that's comfortable, that's fun, that's colorful, that's going to be inspiring, and something I really want to work on, whether it's picking up the hook or picking up the needles. To me, I feel like this year's class project really hits the mark. It's something that is rather easy, yet exciting because of the color work. And then once you see the full reveal of what you are making, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. This Tournament of Stitches is something a little bit different than other mystery make-alongs that I do, because you do know what you're making, you just don't know what it looks like. So for this year, we are all making a blanket. Whether you're making a knitted blanket or a crocheted blanket, that is your choice. And this year, for the first time, I'm giving a smaller option for the knitters. I know that as knitters, it takes us a good amount of time to get through our homework, and some of us are slower than others. So I'm giving those of you out there who don't think you can finish a throw blanket in a 6-week time period a chance to make a pillow instead. So you will follow instructions for the pillow instead of the throw blanket, but you'll still be able to follow along, learn some great techniques, and hopefully have some fun along the way. A full list of the materials you need and the details regarding the Tournament of Stitches are listed on my website. I've put a link in the video description box right down there below, and you know the drill. Smash that like button as you're down there. Once you click the link, you will see all of the yarn you need, the hook or the needles that you need, and the full list of instructions. Now, I'm going to put a little caveat there, or put a little asterisk there for you. As we're going through the Tournament of Stitches, the instructions are given on a weekly basis. So as you scroll to the bottom of that blog post, that's where you will find the link for each set of instructions. This is a 6-week course, 6-week knit along or crochet along. So you will have a set of 6 different instructions, and the full link for each one is at the bottom of the blog post that is linked in the video description box below this video. So hopefully that is as clear as possible for where you need to go to get the details regarding the Tournament of Stitches, to get the material list, and where you're going to go each week to get the instructions that you're supposed to follow along with these videos. Okay? The last thing I want to mention is that if you want to ask questions, participate as a team together, I really encourage you to join me over in the Marley's Minions Facebook group. I know some of you don't do Facebook, but I will let you know the Facebook group that I run, the Marley's Minions, is amazing. It is upbeat, it's inspirational, it's fun. The moderators I have in there are exceptional. They keep everything on the up and up and par, and the number one rule that we have is that you keep it positive, you keep it fun, and you don't be a jerk. So if you're looking for a safe place to come and play and be part of the team, I encourage you to come and do that. Are there prizes? Yes. yes, you can find the details about that once again in that blog post below. All right, so I've talked more than enough at the start of this video, and I know that there are some of you out there that are like, oh my gosh, stop jibber jabbering, but I have to give you some of this information at the start. Not all of the videos are like this. So having said that, I'm gonna ask you to go ahead, grab your yarn and grab your hook or your needles, and let's go ahead and jump in to week 1 of the Tournament of Stitches. Okay, knitters, it is time for us to dive in. This week we are going to learn the main technique we are going to use for the entire blanket. And as I refer to the blanket pattern or the pillow pattern, I'm going to refer to it as our class project, okay? The class project is what we are making throughout the Tournament of Stitches, and we will only use this one technique we're using today for our class project. However, through the next 5 weeks after this week, I will be teaching you other techniques that you could use in place of this one on future projects if you want, okay? We are diving into modular knitting, you guys. I am a big fan of mitered squares and entrelac and corner to corner, and I mean, you name it, I love all of that stuff. And I decided, you know what, when I work on those type of projects, I find it very relaxing and comfortable. I love the finished result. And as I mentioned at the start of this video, I really wanted to have a project that was a comfortable knit. It's still exciting because of the colors. There's a little bit of twist with some color work that we're doing with this, but overall, this is a fun and relaxing project. At least I hope you find it that way as well. Just as I said before, if you are a fairly quick knitter, confident in your knitting skills, and you want to make a throw blanket, you absolutely could follow the instructions for today's video with the throw. Or if you're a little bit slower, maybe you don't want a throw blanket, you want to test this out with the pillow, you could follow today's instructions for the pillow. Either one will work. Make sure you have today's instructions. The link is in the video description box below. So you'll go to that link for the blog post. It'll send you to the link for the week 1 instructions, okay, for the knitters, week 1 instructions for the knitters. I'm going to be very general in my instructions today. You are going to follow along with the numbers of the pattern given in the pattern. Did that make sense? You're going to follow along with the numbers given in the pattern for your project, okay? Let me show you the technique you will be using. Okay, first things first, you want to make sure you do have your needles with you. I said you could use straights, but I do prefer circular needles and highly recommend using circulars, especially as you're working through these modular knits. You also have your 5 chosen colors. Right now, I want you to go ahead and designate what color is color A, color B, color C, color D, and color E. I will let you know that color E is the color that you will use for the border of your blanket or the back of your pillow. So make sure you choose the color E that you want to be sort of like your border around everything, your highlight of everything that's going on in the center of the blanket, okay? So make sure you've labeled what is A through E. All right, once you have that established, we can go ahead and jump in with our first square of this modular project. The first square is made individually. We are going to cast on stitches using 2 colors. As we work through these modular mitered squares, we are going to work with 2 colors throughout. It is a form of intarsia. Now, don't get scared, don't freak out, don't think, oh my gosh, I can't do this. You absolutely can do this. It just takes a little time, a little patience to get started. Once you get on block number 2 or number 3, it becomes very comfortable, very familiar, and you're gonna have no problem at all working along. So let's go ahead and grab your color A and your color C for the first block. Those are the 2 colors we're gonna start with first. So I'm going to move aside all of my other colors. You guys, can I tell you how excited I am to work with these colors? I think they're so pretty. It's super exciting to me. Now, I do want to remind you, you want to follow along with the numbers written in the pattern for your pattern itself, okay? We want to start with color A, and we are going to put a slip knot on our needle. And using the long tail cast on, I'm going to cast on 13 stitches. you can cast on either 13 stitches and follow along with me, or if you're gonna jump right into the pattern, you can go ahead and cast on the number that is listed in the pattern for color A. I am using the long tail cast on for this. You could use another cast on should you choose. I just really like the long tail cast on, so I tend to use it quite often. Let me count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. I got a little bit over eager. All right, so I have 13 stitches on there with my color A. Now I'm going to take my color B and cast on 12 stitches, or the number listed in your pattern. I'm going to use the long tail cast on once again, so I will go ahead and start with a slip knot and place that slip knot on with my color C. And then I will carry on and place 12 stitches on here with my color C. All right. So right now I have a total of 25 stitches on my needle. They are not joined, right? They are separated just like that. What's going to join them together is as we come across the row and we transition from color C to color A, or vice versa, we're going to have our old color jump over the new color. So whatever color you were using is going to jump over top of the new color you're going to use, and you'll carry on with your new color. Now that will make sense as I show it to you, but that is a phrase you're going to say to yourself often: old over new. The other thing that we want to point out is that as this fabric is facing you right now, this is the right side of your fabric. So when I turn my work and I do my first row, I am looking at the wrong side, which means when I do my intarsia, I want to make sure that my old over new happens on this side. We want to place all of our intarsia floats, or our twining of our intarsia, for lack of a better word, on the wrong side. Okay, so here's how we're going to do that. Don't get too frustrated here at the start, you guys. This is something that might take you a couple times to get used to, but you can do this, I promise. We're going to go ahead and we're going to knit across using the same color as the stitch right now. Okay, so I'm going to knit across using my color C. All right, now I have to go to my next stitch and I have to change colors, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move the purple to the front of my work just like if I were purling, okay? And I'm going to grab my color A from the front of the work. Notice I've put my color C over top of my color A. All right, so it's old over top of new. And now because I'm knitting, I want to make sure that that new is pulled to the back. And that's all it is. That little twist right there, old over new. And now I carry on with the new color, working these same stitches with the same color, if that makes sense. All right, so that is the end of our row 1, which is a wrong side. So we're going to turn our work, and this is where we begin the shaping for the miter. When we do miter square shaping, it all happens on the right side of the fabric. By doing it on the right side of the fabric, we're enabling the stitches to all look very uniform and familiar. It's going to be great, right? The other thing is, for us and our purposes of working the intarsia, only having to do the decrease for the miter on the front, but allowing our colors to change on the back is a lot easier than that little extra step we have to do when we're on the wrong side and have to change colors. So it makes it so there's not too much going on. At least that's the way I look at it. All right, so here's how we're going to do this. Again, I'm going to make sure I want to get all my tails out of the way to make sure I'm good. My yarn, I'm not stressing if it's a little bit twisted here. You can always untwist them by moving your balls of yarn, or if you want to make yarn butterflies, you could do that as well. I have a whole video on how to do yarn butterflies. I'll make sure I put a link to it in the video description box below and in that little I button above. But right now, we're going to maintain garter stitch. We're going to knit across to the last 2 stitches of my color A. Okay, so I'm knitting across to the last 2 stitches of my color A. So I'm going to be knitting to that point. So let's do that. All right, so I'm to the last 2 stitches of my color A. Let me get some more yarn here. And it's at this point I'm going to work my decrease. So this is the decrease we have to be familiar with, okay? So we are going to slip this first stitch. Let me get my yarn here. We're going to slip this first stitch as if to knit. Now we knit these 2 stitches together, all right? So it's the last stitch of my color A, the first stitch of my color C. I'm going to knit them together. Then that slip stitch that we did, we're going to grab it and have it jump up and over the stitch we just knit. Now we're going to carry on with color C, but once again, we have to go old over new, right? So we're going to take our orange and go over top of the purple. You see that? See the crossover? Drop the orange, grab the purple, and carry on with the purple. If you want to actually like move your balls of yarn one over the other, you absolutely could do that as well. It gives it a little bit more of a visual representation of what you're doing, like a more physical act. All right, so here I'm at the end here. I've worked my first decrease, and notice it's a double decrease. We've decreased 2 stitches. So we have 1 fewer stitch over here and 1 fewer stitch over here. Congratulations, we're on our way. From this point out, it's a lot of the same. So we're going to turn our work. Once again, on our wrong side, we're just going to knit back, making sure you're knitting with the same color as the stitch that's on your needle. When it's time to switch colors, we're going to do old over new. Knit over to the new color. There's no decrease on the wrong side, no decrease. So this would be row 3. And remember, in order to do old over new on the wrong side, we have to move our yarn to the front. All right, so I'm here. I'm going to move my yarn to the front of the needles. And then here's my color A is already up here in front waiting for me. So I have my purple is over top of my color A, over my orange. I bring my orange back to the back, right, because I'm knitting. And then I'll knit. So I just carry on. I just drop my color C and I just continue with my color A. It really is that simple, you guys. It all comes together nice and neat. We're back on the right side, so we have to work our center decrease again, and we're also going to maintain our intarsia. So as we go through this row, I'm going to make sure that I'm working the center decrease and I'm doing my old over new when I change colors. So let's go ahead and work the same color as the stitches over to 2 stitches to the end of this color A. So I'm going to work over to 2 stitches from the center essentially. Like it's the last 2 stitches of color A. That's really the better way to say it. So I'm at the last 2 stitches of color A. I'll slip a stitch as if to knit, go into the next 2 stitches and knit them together, and then have the stitch I slipped jump up and over the stitch I just knit. Now it's time for me to do old over new. So here's my old, here's my new. So I did old over new. Drop the old, pick up the new. See, there's the twist. That's just that little twist right there. That's all you need. It creates a nice little link in the intarsia, and you carry on with your color C. It is that simple. And we're going to keep doing this, these 2 rows just like this, until we get down to 3 stitches. So get to the end of the work, turn your work. Here's a little tip. What I try to do is I make sure that my needles, that my color A, all right, my color A is in front of my needles. When I start, it just makes it a little bit easier. All right, when I start my wrong side, I make sure it's in front of my needles when I start my wrong side. And here I go. So I'm on the wrong side, so I'm just knitting the same color, no shaping on this side. I'm just maintaining the intarsia. So here I go, all the way through color C. Gonna do this one, so I have to move color C forward. Make sure it's over top of color A. Bring color A back, because I'm knitting. That's why it's going back to the back, is because I'm knitting. Okay, guys? And I'm making sure that this link right here that we're creating, that little link is on the wrong side. That's why we're doing it all over here on this side. Once I bring that back, I continue on knitting through this color. This is going to give us some mitered squares that are triangles. One half is going to be one color, the other half is going to be a different color, and they're going to fit together very nicely. You're at the end, turn your work. We're back to a right side. So this is the side we're going to do a decrease on, right? This is the side we're going to do a decrease on. You can move your colors if you want. If having your colors kind of twisted up on you bothers you, just simply untwist them. Okay, just like this. Here we go, let's do this again. We're gonna knit down to the last 2 stitches of color A. You get to the last 2 stitches of color A, you slip one as if to knit. Knit these 2 stitches together. Then have the slip stitch slip up and over that stitch you just knit. We're going to change colors here, but our yarn is already in back, right? Because we're on the right side. So we went old over new. So we went the orange over top of the purple. So I could go like this. And now the orange is over top of the purple. And I continue on with the purple. See that? Okay, I have a feeling you guys are getting the hang of this, but just because I know a lot of you like to watch me go through this, I'm gonna go ahead and let the video continue to record as I continue on with this mitered square. I'm gonna get up to where there are 3 stitches. It's at that point I want you guys to join me back in if you're fast forwarding ahead, or if you just wanna work along with me, go ahead, sit back, enjoy the music, and work with me as I work through this mitered square, okay? Just remember, old over new. When you're on the right side, make sure you work your decrease. When you're on the wrong side, make sure you're doing your floats or your links, is that's the better word for it, your links for your intarsia on the wrong side. All right, so I'm gonna continue on, you do the same. Okay, you're down to 3 stitches. And here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna turn your work, and we're gonna go ahead and we're going to snip our color A. Make sure you leave a nice long tail to weave in. Once you snip your color A, go ahead and move color A out of the way. And we're going to do this last row only with our color C. So what you're going to do is we're going to work a decrease essentially on this side. So we're going to slip one, so slip one. We're going to knit 2 together. So even though they are color A, you're going to knit 2 together and then pass the slip stitch over. All right. Once you've done that, go ahead, snip your color C, leaving a nice long tail. And I mean, guys, you could just pull this out and make it just elongated and give it a pull. I don't like to do that. So what I like to do is just open up that loop, grab your tail and pull it through just to give it a little lock. All right. Once you've done that, your miter looks a little something like this on the wrong side. You should see all your nice little locking floats all the way up. Look how pretty they are, old over new. And on the right side, it looks like this. Look how pretty it is. Isn't that great? All of those decreases that we did are right there. You have a nice little line and the 2 triangles together. It looks pretty darn awesome. Now this is the right side of your triangle. If you need to use a stitch marker to mark the right side to help you remember, you absolutely can do that. Or you can always remember, hey, the side that has my little intarsia links, that's my wrong side. So anytime I see that, I know I'm on the wrong side. One thing you can do at this point is you can weave in your tails right now, which I will encourage you to do. You guys know me, I love to weave in my tails as I go. So it's at this point I usually will grab my needle and weave in my tails. And the great thing about intarsia is we can bury our tails in the links, and I have a whole video on that I did with Ann Burke, who is Antarsia. She is all about intarsia, and essentially you use a very sharp chenille needle, take your yarn, and if you just zip up, and I'm splitting the links. Can you guys see that? I'm splitting the links. I'm splitting right through them with my sharp needle. I'm going to pull this tail up. And then as I come back, I split those links again, and I split the yarn I just pulled through, come all the way down, zip, zip, and that's all it takes. That's all I need to do to weave in that tail. Give it a nice snip. That one. Again, I encourage you to weave in your tails as you go along. So now all of that is woven in. There's my wrong side, and if I flip it over, there's my right side. All right, guys, you see that? And there you have it. You have created your very first intarsia mitered square. It really isn't that difficult, and I promise you it gets easier as we go along. As you create more and more of these, it's going to be easier and easier. Now, we are going to create our class project as a join as you go project, meaning all of the squares we are going to make are going to be joined to a previous square or squares. However, if you find that too difficult, you absolutely could create these squares on an individual basis and then seam them together later in the pattern that we are creating. Totally up to you. But I will encourage you to give this a try because it just makes life so much easier to not have to seam them all together. It's a really fun, great project to work on and make these mitered squares. So what we're going to do now is place our square down just like so that way our color A is up top here and color C is down on the bottom. This will follow along with the diagram you see in your pattern. What we want to do now is create the next square over here on this side of this square. So if this is square number 1, we're going to create square number 2 right here. And then when it's time for square number 3, we're going to create square number 3 right there. When it goes to the next square following that, that will be the square up here, square number 4. which will work along this edge of square number 1. And then square number 5 will work along this edge of 4 and this edge of 2. Okay, so it becomes very easy to do. Once you understand how to pick up and knit along this edge right here, you should be able to pick up and knit along all of the other edges without any issue. For our class project, the next two colors are color D and color C. So for me, my color D is this really pretty green tea color. So the green tea color is what I will use as I pick up and knit along my square. And then I'm going to go back to my color C, and that's the color I will cast on for this edge of my square. When you create mitered squares, if you will notice on this one, you create the edge of the piece right here. So we cast on all of these stitches. And then as we worked up, we kept decreasing down our center to get down to few stitches up here. So that way we get this really nice, beautiful diagonal line. We're going to do the same over here by picking up stitches here and casting on stitches here, and our diagonal line will be going in this direction again. So it's going to go the same way as this one. All right, so here we go. To pick up and knit when we're working on garter stitch, I usually will turn my work so that way I can work along this way of the edge, but I want you to notice, like, this is the square as it would be sitting in the diagram. We want to pick up along this edge. So I tend to turn it so that way I can work down this way. And for me, I will look along the edge here, and I have these bumps, these turning bumps, right, from the garter. And I will pick up the stitches there. And I want to pick up either 12 or 13, okay, whatever I can do. If I get 12, I will cast on one extra stitch to get 13. If I pick up 13, that's fine too, because I want ultimately 13 stitches along this edge. I want the same number of stitches along this edge as I started when I did the first edge of this square. Does that make sense? So what I will do is I will go in to the edge here of my piece. So there's my edge. So I'm going to go in, put in my needle, grab my yarn, make sure I have the center here, wrap my yarn around the needle, and then pull that yarn through that loop. All right, make sure you don't split the yarn, and that's that. I'm going to stick my needle in the next bump along the edge here, yarn over my needle, just like I would if I were knitting, and then pull up a loop through the stitch I went into. All right, so I'm going along essentially this next garter ridge I have here. I'm going in right along there, just picking up that little bump. Super easy, picking up the bump, yarning over my needle, and then pulling that yarn over through that bump. Let me do that one more time. I'm in the bump, yarn over, and then pull the yarn over through the bump. If you're struggling with this, something that you can do is find the next bump you want to go into. So let's say it's that one right there, okay? Instead of using your right hand needle, go into it, use your left hand needle. Go into that bump, all right? Put it on your left hand needle. Now, treat that bump as if it's a stitch. Go ahead and go into it. Yarn over your right hand needle and come out just like you're knitting. Go to the next garter ridge right here, find the next bump. If I can get in there with my left hand needle, put that bump on my left hand needle, and I'm going to treat it just as a stitch. Take my right hand needle, put it in, yarn over, and come out. When I say yarn over, I'm yarning around my right hand needle. I'm just creating a knit stitch. So I'm going into the bump, and then I'm treating it just like a knit stitch. I'm going to do this all the way down my row. Go in, around, and notice I am on the right side of the fabric. So as I pick these up, I'm going to have a little bit of a ridge on the wrong side, but it's better that it's on the wrong side than the right side. Right now, I'm just picking up that outside bump on each one of my ridges, When I get to the end, I'll just count my stitches and I'll figure out what I have there. Now in the pattern, it might give you a set number of stitches to always pick up, which is fine. I just want you guys to know, like, there's a little flexibility here. Like, you can do whatever works best for what you've created. All right, so this one, I'm going through the back leg on this one because that stitch just looks like it's seated differently. So let's see here. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 stitches. I could go ahead and try and get one more right down here. I mean, why not? Let's go ahead. Let's just get one more to give me my 13. I don't like how I split that yarn there. So I'm going to get 13. So I have my 13 stitches all along my edge. Looking good. I'm not going to worry too much that there's a little bit of an opening there because I can use this tail to close that up later, so I'm not going to stress about it. But now I have that edge picked up. So if it were sitting down flat to look like the diagram, it would look just like so. So we have A, we have C. Now we've cast on, so we picked up and knit, essentially. I mean, not essentially, that's what we did. We picked up and knit 13 stitches with our color D. Now we're going to go back with our color C and cast on 12 stitches. Now you could do the knitted cast on, cable cast on, or long tail cast on just like before. And I'm going to use long tail because I like it and it's just my preferred. So I'm going to start with a slip knot. I'm going to place that slip knot on my needle, tighten it up, and that counts as 1. So there's 1, so I need 12 more stitches. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 12. All right. So here I am. I'm set up just like I was when I did this square, right? I have 13 of this color and 12 of this color. So when I turn my work, I'll be on the wrong side, and I'm going to continue on working in the exact same manner I created the first square. So the only thing different right now are the colors I'm using and the fact that I picked up and knit my very first cast on edge instead of casting on, right, with my color that's right here. Everything else is going to be the same. Let me go ahead and work the first couple rows with you so you can see exactly what I mean, and then I'm going to let you carry on and finish this square, okay? So I will go ahead and I'm going to turn my work. All right, so I'm just going to knit across. Again, I'm just using the same color I'm using the same color to knit with as the stitch is on the needle. All right, the only time that's different is when we do the decrease. Here we go. I'm coming up to the end here. This is the wrong side, so this is not a decrease row yet, right? So I'm on the wrong side, which means I need to bring my yarn forward. So I bring my yarn forward, and it's old over new. So purple over top of the green, old over new, and because I'm knitting with the green, I make sure it goes between my needles back to the back so that way I can knit with it. Let me grab it, and I continue on knitting. And here on this first one, I'm not worried that it's a little bit separated because as I pull this, that just tightens that up. No worries. So this first one is to get everything connected, and it starts that link process of old over new. All right, pretty simple. We're going to keep going here. When I get to the end, yes, this one gets a little bit loose because there's nothing attached to it, but again, you just tighten it up. All right, so I'm going to turn my work. This would be my row 1. This is my first right side row. I apologize, right side row, which means I'm going to work a decrease. So I'm going to knit down to where there's 2 stitches left of my color D. I will slip 1, knit 2 together, and pass the slip stitch over. All right, so here we go. Have my colors all right here, ready to go. And we are off. So I will knit over to 2 stitches. It's 2 stitches left of my color D. All right, 2 stitches left of color D. I slip one as if to knit. I knit 2 together, and then I pass the slip stitch over top. Now I have to change colors. So I'm going to go old color, which is the green, right? So let me get this over here. So I have the old color, my green. I'm going to put it over top of the purple, so old over new. So you can even go like this, like old over new. That's very visual. So old over new, green over purple, and I grab my purple and I go ahead and I carry on using the purple. Again, if it's a little bit loose right there, it's okay. Just tighten it up, snug it up a little bit with those stitches, and it looks good. Let's keep going. Here is our first little join right there. All right, so now we're back to the wrong side. So I turn my work, make sure this is over here. I'm just going to knit with this color, and then I'll do old over new, and I'll knit with that color. You can do this. Even if you're a beginner, I mean, think about this. We're just knitting. We're just knitting, and we're doing a very simple decrease. And as far as the color change goes, as long as you do old over new, it'll be just fine. Just fine, you guys. You can do this. You absolutely can do this. It's just sticks and string, everybody. All right, here we go. We're going to bring our yarn to the front because we want our links over here on this side. So we want our old color over our new color. So here's our new color. So old over new, pick up the new, and I'm going to knit, so I have to bring it back to the back so that I can knit with it. And that's it. That's all it is. You saw I just gave this yarn just a little bit of tug to make sure it's nice and tidy there. Not too much, nothing too spectacular. And as I mentioned before, if you want to use butterflies instead of full skeins of yarn, you absolutely could do that. That is an option for you. Turn my work. I'm back to my right side. So I'm going to work a decrease. So I'm going to work all the way down to the last 2 stitches of this color. I'll slip one, knit 2 together, pass the slip stitch over. All right, so let me see here. I'm going to make this as visual as possible again with the colors. Make it so you can really see the old over new one more time. Some more yarn. All right, so I'm down to the last two stitches of this color. So I slip one as if to knit, knit 2 together, pass the slip stitch over top. Now I'm going to do old over new, so green over the purple. So purple, see that? The green is over top of the purple. That creates the link. That's all you need to do. And then we carry on with the purple. So just grab your purple and then keep going with the purple. Right down here, this is the square that we were just working on. I finished it and you can see that it has a nice diagonal, the same diagonal as this one. For the following square, you would make the next one right over here. And then for the next set, you would start to build squares on top of these ones. And that's kind of where I am next. So I'm gonna move this aside because we will use this in another video. But this right here, this is a representation of squares 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 5, and 6. So as we go to squares 7, 8, and 9, it starts off the exact same way this square started off. So I'm going to come up here and start this square, but knowing that it starts off the exact same way this one does, just different colors. So you will get your colors for this square, which are colors A and color E, color A and color E. With color A, you will go ahead and using the long tail cast on, I did 13 stitches with my color A, and then my color E, that is actually my polo color here, so I got to pull that over. And this is the one we're going to use to pick up and knit. So working along this edge, so this would be the edge of square or miter number 4. We're going to work along this edge right here to pick up stitches. Same thing, guys, we're still going to work along the edges of these garter ridges, picking up these outside little bumps, and we'll make it as easy as possible, whether you only use the right needle or if you need to use the left needle to really identify that bump. You choose what's best for you. I'm going to start off right here with this bump just so that I'm right here on the edge. And if I don't like it, I can always rip it out and start again, no big deal. I want to pick up 12 stitches here, okay, you guys? So I want to pick up 12 stitches. Remember, it's 13 stitches with the first color, essentially, and then 12 stitches with the second color, or whatever's written in your pattern. Don't forget to have that pattern in front of you. Once you go in, you will wrap your needle and pull that through. So there's 1. So I need to go ahead and continue and get 12. So I'm just going to follow right on through. And if it gets to a point where maybe I have 1 too many or I don't get to the end, I can always just tweak it. It's not that big of a deal. As long as you're consistent with where you pick up your stitches, pick up and knit, you will be just fine. So I'm just going to go along and I will count once I'm done because I find it easier just to pick everything up and then count. Oops, I split that. And then I sometimes will pick one up right down there, but let's count my stitches quickly. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So I have 12 already. So I want you to notice this. If I keep these 12 just like so, I have quite a big gap right there. So that's not really something that I would want, okay? So knowing that I could rip out this very first one that I did over here, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And the reason I did that is because I know that I can add my border right here and really kind of tidy up that edge. But if I leave this big gap right there, that's just not too good. So I know that I can just go into this last loop down here and get my 12, and that will be a nice tidy little edge there. Now this will leave a little bit of an opening right there, but I'm not going to stress about it because I have these nice tails that I can weave in and close any hole or gap between my squares. So don't let the gaps scare you or don't fret over them. We can close them up with our tails. That's the beauty of having those tails, all right? So now that I have all my stitches on here, I have my 25 stitches total, 13 and 12. I carry on creating my miter just like I did these. You know how to do that. Pretty simple. Let's go ahead, get this square complete so that way I can show you how we will pick up along this edge of this square and this edge of that square to create the miter going that way. Pretty easy. I know you can do it. I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, with that, I have finished what would be my square number 7, and I'm going to move on to square number 8, which is going to be done by picking up and knitting along this edge and this edge. This would have been the same thing we would do for square number 5 and square number 6. So what I'm getting ready to show you is exactly what you would do down here and right here, okay? For this square, we are going to use color B and color D, which is actually this same sequence right here. So I'm going to use my lighter purple color right here along this edge to pick up and knit, and then I'll pick up my green tea color along this edge to pick up and knit. So very easy to do, as I did when I was picking up and knitting along, let's see, it would have been right down here, right here along this edge. I tend to turn my work so that way I can go along here working this way, and then I'll shift my work and I'll work along this path. So this is as it's laying down flat. This is the square I just finished. I'm just shifting it around so I can get to my stitches this way. Remember, on the first side, you want to pick up 13 or the larger number written in the pattern. And on this side, you want to pick up 12 or the smaller number written in the pattern. We keep that consistent throughout the whole pattern. So for this one, let me go ahead. I'm going to start up here. And I'm just going to grab one of my bumps outside, just like I did before, guys. And I'll just start up here at the corner. Make sure I get my yarn right here. Leave a nice long tail so you can weave that in later. Yarn over and pull up a loop. All right. So there's one. I'm just going to work my way down right along the edge, just like I've done before. All right. Nothing new here. What's going to be new, as far as new for this video, is that we're going to pick up and knit along both of the edges. We're not going to cast on either of the colors. It's just going to pick up and knit. And this is a great way to join as you go for these mitered squares. If you are making your squares individual-like, you would actually ignore all of this bit, right? You're just going to cast on just like you did for the very first one. But to do the join as you go with the miter, this is one of the best ways, in my opinion, to go about making something with miters. I mean, I love it when I can work a join as you go with it because I don't have to seam things up. All right. So as before, I'm going to just work all the way down, and then I'm going to go back and count as I'm going. Since I'm talking the whole time, I can't count and talk at the same time. Sorry guys, I'm not that talented. All right, let's get that in here. Make sure I pull it around. Ooh, that one's giving me trouble. There we go. Go down here. Right there along the edge. Just keep it consistent as you're working along that edge, and I just pick up right there in that bump, yarn over, pull that through, and just keep it going. Pretty consistent. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So this is where I would want one more. So I can pick up one more here. I could cast on one. I'm actually just going to pick one up right there in that corner. Give myself 13. I've worked all the way along this edge. It looks really great. And now I will carry on and pick up stitches along this edge with the other color. So what I would do from this point is I would rotate my work. And then if you're using a circular needle, you can pull this down so that these stitches are on the cord, or you can just kind of keep going with your straight, just kind of pinch your work so that you can work across this way. You see what I mean? So I'm going to do the pinch the work way, so that way it will demonstrate for the people who are using straight needles and circulars. It works for both. I'm leaving a nice long tail with my color D. I'm going to kind of pinch it, see how that pinches up, and it allows me to have my work ready. And I'm just going to work along this edge again, just picking up my bump. So I'm going to pick a bump and keep that consistent throughout. So I'm going to choose that one right there. Let's see if that's it's kind of a really solid bump. I really wove in my tail there pretty good, but I'm going to see if I can get this through and make that work Look at that. All right, so there's 1. I want to get 12 over here, or get whatever is written in the pattern. All right, so I'm coming up to number 12 right here. So I'm going to get number 12, and I'm going to count just to make sure. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Perfect. So as you see here, if it's straight, it kind of pinches up and it looks a little goofy, but it's going to be perfectly fine as we continue our work. Now we have all of our stitches on here. We have 25 stitches total, just like we did before. So we would carry on working our miters just like we did before. First row is going to be a wrong side row. Second row will be the first right side row and our first decrease row. We're going to continue to put the old color over the new, so that way we get the intarsia and carry on. Let's go ahead and, why not? Let's go ahead and do the first couple rows together, even though I know by this point you surely know how to do it, but I think it is good to always demonstrate just a little bit more. Rather over demonstrate for you guys than under demonstrate for sure. And the good news is, for your homework for this part of the class project, it's just these 9 squares, okay? So you're going to create these 9 squares. You have a whole week to complete them. No stress. You just take your time, enjoy the process. Honestly, once you get past, I want to say the first 3 squares, if it's like, oh, all right, this is pretty cool. And it's really exciting to see how the colors all work together. Once you see the entire project, you're going to just be like, wow, this is really cool. At least I hope you will be. I mean, it's pretty exciting. I know some of you are probably going to ask me at some point, should I use lighter colors, darker colors at what point? I mean, honestly, I would just say, just try and use the colors that are pretty, just not too close in color, and you could really put them anywhere you want. This whole project works really great with all colors, so you should be pretty darn good. All right, so I finished the first wrong side row. I've turned it. I'm going to decrease on this row. So remember, I'm going to work down to the last 2 stitches of this first color, and I'll slip 1, knit 2 together, pass the slip stitch over. So I'm in the pattern. You will follow along with the pattern, but this is essentially what you're doing. So if you are coming home late from work and you're working on these squares and you're just like, man, I don't want to sit here and count the number of stitches every time. What's an easy way to remember where I'm supposed to work my decrease? This is the easy way. Work down till you get down to the last 2 stitches of the color you're on, right? If you're on the right side, get down to the last 2 stitches, slip 1, knit 2 together, and when you knit 2 together, it'll be 1 of each color, and then pass the slip stitch over. All right, and then from there, it's just old over new. So my purple is going to go over the green, if I can find my green, purple over my green, pick up my green, and just continue on with the green. And just by doing that old over new, I'm linking my colors together. You guys know this. At this point, you should be able to look at your mitered squares, see the linking process. It doesn't take any extra twist or anything else. Just that simple link will keep those colors together and you will not get a hole. All right, guys? So I'm going to turn, I'm going to continue on, and I'm going to get this square done. Once I get this square done, I'm going to go ahead and complete square number 9. So I'm going to get this entire panel done, which is exactly what you're going to do for your homework, whether you're making the pillow size or you're making the full size throw. This is your homework, but I want you to see what it looks like before the end of the video. So let me get my work done and give you a peek. And voila, this is what the first panel of your blanket or your pillow should look like. The color placement is very precise, so make sure you did follow along with the diagram as far as where to put the colors. Hopefully this was not too difficult for you and you were able to easily accomplish the mitered square plus the intarsia. It is something super fun to do. Again, if the join as you go technique is too difficult for you, you can make each square individual and then we can sew them all together later on. Don't forget to weave in your ends as you go. Make sure they're all woven in, they look nice and neat. It will make it so much better for the duration of your project. As I mentioned in the introduction, this particular technique that you learned in this video is what we will use for the entire class project. So you will become very familiar with this style of modular knitting. However, over the next several weeks, I will be showing you several different styles of modular knitting. I'm excited to fill up your knitter's toolbox with a ton of knowledge, and I really do hope that you love this mitered square just as much as I do with the combination of the colors and the ultimate placement as we go on through this knit along is so exciting. I can't wait to show you more, explain more behind the design, and just have some fun. If you find this fun, and just have some fun. Don't forget to join the Marley's Minions Facebook group to ask some questions to others that are participating in this knit along, or to the testers, or to me. I'm over there answering questions as well. Last but not least, as you are working on this project, be sure to share on social media. Use hashtag MarleyBird or hashtag Tournament of Stitches. All right, that's it from me. Good luck this week. Finish your homework, and I'll see you next Thursday for a new set of instructions and a new technique. Bye, everybody.